What's up, D&D fans? Back with Warded Door. I'm excited to have you here. So we've learned a few things in the past week or so, right? What is D&D? How to get started in D&D? How to make a character in D&D? But there's one element that we've so far overlooked that's extremely important, essential: the Dungeon Master. How do I find a DM? The whole thing sounds like a giant pain, and it is. I'm not going to beat around the bush with you or use 100 words when 10 will do. Finding a DM often sucks. Why does no one want to be a DM? Well, we just met our player's handbook. As soon as you're a DM, another book comes into play. Dungeon Master's Guide, or the DMG. Plus you need to use the Monster Manual when you're fighting your player characters. So it gets a little intimidating looking at a full basic set. You're looking at 3 hardbound books, all of them like that. All of them killer reading. I've been through them all, but if you're just trying to get your feet wet, everybody's apprehensive about being a dungeon master. Let me show you that why it shouldn't be the case. Now, there's a number of ways to look for a game. As you can see here on Obsidian Portal, you'll see games nearby, and the whole thing moves from the entire continental United States and further. And what you can see there is just the area of Charlotte, is what it says underneath there. The bad thing is, these are just recordings of games, and the games may be long expired. Nobody may play them anymore. The people that had played them may be a decade or more older. So there's no guarantees here, but it will tell you how densely populated your area is to find a game in, though some may have gone stale. Alright team, I'm so confident that I'm going to make this point well that I'm going to do this in real time, okay? We are going to try to find a DM on Roll20. We want to play 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. We're all adults here, and we only want to find games that are free to play. If you want to pay for a game, that's fine, but I don't recommend it if you're starting out. Take some responsibility, right? Make it happen yourself. So let's find these games based off these filters, and we'll see what it generates for us. Skylar D. Okay, thank you for all those applies. We're going through applications now, so that's closed. Next one says I have 4 players already just looking for a DM. The next one says, hey yo, my name's Graham and I'm looking for a GM. Okay, hi. Okay, Dennis. We'll see what Dennis has to say. Dennis has 35 applications for his game. Let's go to the next one. Maybe there's something we can get into. Let's see what Michael Q's got. Pages of the Devourer. He's got 25 responses just before applying. There's 3 pages of applications. We'll do one more just to see if we get lucky, right? Sunless Citadel. Canon stuff. Okay, cool. Need 6 players. Only 3 applications in. Last one went in 3 minutes ago, so this was probably just posted. Don't depend on the kindness of strangers for D&D. It already requires a ton of legwork if you're behind the screen and there's just players throwing themselves at you left and right. So after all of that mess, I bet you or someone in your group is reconsidering being the DM. Now the first book you're looking at is the Dungeon Master's Guide, right? And let me assure you, this is the best DMG I've seen in every edition. I have every one of them on a bookshelf behind this poorly done green screen. So I'm telling you, the 5e DMG is really where it's at. Now you're thinking, that thing is thick, it sounds intense. Just take a moment, breathe. We'll go over the basics. First is world building, right? Doesn't need to be too complex, especially if you're just getting into the game, right? World building is progressive. Your PCs will give you ideas to help you build the world. You don't have to have everything laid out at once like you're declaring a war. Plot building. You don't have to be J.R.R. Tolkien either. You don't have to have a ton of work set out. Again, as you play the game, the plot will develop involuntarily. The PCs will do things that lead to events. Maybe be friendly to a PC, or an NPC rather. Maybe piss another one off. The plot will roll along, so there's no reason to dig into anything you don't want to at this point. Non-player characters, this is an important part it goes over, right? That NPCs are what fuel the campaign. You speak to some, they give you a mission, they give you rewards, you have to kill others. the entire game is constructed around it, your world and your non-player characters. So they can be disposable, they can be epic and stay for an entire series of games, 10, 20, whatever you want. But they're all up to you, and there's no hard rules. So do what you want to and have fun with it. There's also a bunch of magical items in this book, really cool stuff to look over. Now, it's probably not a good idea to give your first level fighter a vorpal sword so he can just start cutting the head off of everything. That's kind of a wrench in the gears of the plot. So you don't want to do that kind of thing, but if you want to give them to the PCs conservatively, do that. If you want to liberally just say, here's all the magical items that I think you'll have fun with, do that too. It's all up to you. Remember, this book is full of rules. This is where the real meat of what a DM should know is. And also remember, this is a reference book. You reference it. You don't need to know everything in here. Maybe just the basics, not much more than the player's handbook. Because when you need to know something, you look it up like it's an encyclopedia, because it's a reference book. Now, the monster manual is not as rule tight. It's a really fluid book, meaning you look through it like you would have magical items in the Dungeon Master Guide, and it's just fun stuff. And what a DM really needs to know out of a monster manual is what kind of monster they want to pit the PCs against, or number of monsters. And the only real thing is how to read a stat block. So we're going to use the Wyvern as an example. Ugly, isn't it? It's also aggressive and going to kill you being the party member. Now let's run down the stat block really quick. You need a 13 or better to hit it. That's its armor class. It has 110 hit points that you need to take off before it dies. It can move 20 feet walking, 80 feet flying. And we're going to get into how to use the grid in another video. It's a very useful tool and not as difficult as you would think. It's actually quite the aid for the player. Challenge rating 6 means that there should be 4 6th level PCs fighting this thing if they all expect it to make it out alive. I have personally found that you can throw lower level PCs against a monster 2 to 3 levels higher and stack them with more experience points, whether those be broken down, but I much prefer those given in milestone awards. So when a PC accomplishes something big in the story, that's when they would level up or something like that, rather than you cutting through lots of numbers and dividing them. It won't really contribute a lot to your game. Anywho, the Wyvern has multi-attack. You can see it makes 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its stinger. Okay, we're going to say the Wyvern's landed and it's next to the party's fighter. It's got +7 to attack. It rolls its d20 +7, 17. So if the fighter's armor class is 17 or less, it hits him. It does hit him. It does 2d6 +4 total damage. That's 11 if he rolls a 2 and a 5 on its d6. But it gets the stinger 2, you'll note. So the stinger, we'll say it rolls 10 again, does 17, will hit an armor class of 17 again. This time it will inflict another 2d6 +4, as you will see, as piercing damage, or its stinger. And now the player character needs to make a saving throw, a constitution saving throw. The player rolls a d20 and they roll a 10. Their con modifier's 3. They rolled a 13. They needed a 15. They fail it. The next thing you know, your fighter's now taking another 7d6 points of damage. That's a lot of damage. He's probably down, called Cleric. Moving on, general tips say yes. If you're just starting out, as a matter of fact, if you're not starting out, if you've been playing this game since Gygax put it out, from before I was alive, and I hear it's a little paper thing, all you old guys brag about it whenever you're like, oh, I've been playing this since... Hope you were good at it the whole time. Say yes. Say yes. Unless they're asking for that vorpal sword to cut the heads off things at first level. Somebody's trying to bag the bar wench, pickpocket somebody that's broke, or just in generally make themselves feel cooler, and it doesn't take away from the game, just makes everything more fun, let them do it. Let them nail her. Let them steal it. Whatever. Right? Learn together. And you, as the DM, avoid the God complex, right? You're not infallible. They can be right sometimes. Now, you've heard the term rules lawyer, but there's nothing wrong with looking into a book together. That way you all know at the end it's cool to be wrong. Every once in a while I have an encounter blown out. It's like, this is supposed to be a big, epic dragon fight. It's breathing fire and, the odds are against them. And then I've seen 20s just come out and the dragon just... It happens. So don't be angry about how it goes down. Learn together. You're just another guy. Maybe you'll rotate that DM slot later and they'll know exactly how it feels. Facilitating a group of your peers. This is easily the hardest thing to do in D&D, in business. I've been to meetings where it's hard to get one person to stop talking so another can get their piece in. And when you're being creative and energy's flowing in a D&D game, people are all over top of each other, and you're going to have to get your friends to respectfully shut up or take turns. And, I've got 40-year-old men forgetting they're not a 12-year-old kid screaming at their friend. So that's the hard thing to do. As a side note, if you're in the professional world, if you don't want to have a confrontation, you shouldn't get into management. And that's what this is, management. Take constructive feedback, right? Be an adult. Even if you're just a kid, be an adult anyway. When somebody gives you some feedback about how something could be more fun and you can make it happen, why not, right? It's all in good fun, and they mean it in a constructive way. If somebody's just being an ass, cool, I'd boot them from the game. It's part of the hard part of facilitate, a little tough love. But if somebody's really giving you the feedback, it's going to contribute to the game, take it. Because again, DM chair rotates. So grandfather your rules in with your social circle, then they'll all have to abide by them on every side of the table. Use reference. I've talked this whole time about, this book isn't that bad, you can read through it or skim through it, but when you got time and it's good reading for you and it's entertaining, you ever waiting, read it. Being more well informed about anything is always a good thing. So, use reference, say yes, avoid the complex, facilitate, and take constructive feedback. Till next time. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like my video, sucks to suck. And I mean you, not me.